The drilling had taken 73 days. The frozen crust of Moon X-17, orbiting the gas giant Relian, was nearly 4 kilometers thick. Beneath it, the excavation team had expected to find more frozen rock, or, at best, mineral veins. What they found instead was impossible something smooth, curved, and metallic. The structure was buried beneath layers of ancient glacial movement, untouched by time. It wasn't part of any known design or civilization currently mapped by the Galactic Survey. It was alien. Not just in form, but in intention. Dr. Juno Raylan, a human xenarchaeologist from Earth, stood beside the exposed hull, her gloved hand resting just above a dark seam that split the circular door in two. It's not reacting to any standard access protocol, she reported to the team. No data ports, no inscriptions, just this line. The team's lead, Director Vero Talek of the Varasi species, narrowed his 4 eyes and tapped into the visual analysis stream. We've scanned 4 chemical codes, light-based triggers, even resonance tones. Nothing. Then something happened as Juno stepped closer. Her heart rate increased slightly, standard reaction to prolonged adrenaline exposure. Her fingers accidentally brushed a small oval plate embedded in the door's surface. A sound echoed, not mechanical, but organic. Like something waking up. The oval flashed. "Wait," Juno said, freezing. It did something. The surface beneath her hand pulsed once, in perfect rhythm with her heartbeat. She stepped back. The pulsing stopped. She stepped forward again. It returned. The system was listening not to voices, not to frequencies, but to life, specifically, to her, within. The hour the camp was in full lockdown. Specialists from every team reviewed the recordings. The same test was run with other species engineers, scientists, even the telepathic diplomat assigned to the mission. The structure remained still. Only Juno triggered the pulse. There's a biometric signature involved, she explained to the assembly later that day. The door only responds to a human heart rhythm. Nothing else we've tried gets a reaction. Could it be coincidence? Director Talek asked. No. The readings match too precisely. The system recognizes human physiology or something extremely close to it. Murmurs spread across the gathered experts. The implications were too large to ignore. This site, ancient beyond estimation, responded only to a human. In a galaxy where humans were still considered newcomers to interstellar society, that was unexpected, even concerning. Juno stood alone before the artifact the next morning, surrounded by light snow and the soft hum of distant machines. The oval plate gleamed faintly. Waiting. Guess we find out what's behind the door, she said quietly. Her voice barely registered over the wind. She pressed her hand gently to the plate again. The heartbeat returned hers, perfectly mirrored in the metallic pulse. This time, the seam in the door began to glow. A line of soft blue light traced a perfect circle, then receded into silence. Then the door began to open. Not with force, but with a slow, graceful motion, as if it had been waiting for a long, long time. Inside, soft light shimmered across strange metallic walls etched with patterns that defied known linguistic systems. The air was breathable, sterile. And at the far end of the chamber stood a tall pillar with a small seat in front of it, designed not for a Varasi, not for a Morthon, not for a Krel. It was designed for a human. Juno stepped inside. Behind her, the artifact door closed on its own, and the galaxy's quietest mystery had just become its loudest question. The chamber inside the artifact was vast, yet eerily silent. Juno Raylan stood beneath a vaulted ceiling that shimmered like starlight. The structure didn't hum or click like modern machines. It breathed subtly, like a living thing asleep with one eye open. The walls bore intricate patterns that flowed when she moved, adapting to her presence. They didn't respond to scanners or touch. Only her. Recording audio and visual, Juno whispered, tapping her shoulder mic. Interior dimensions are organic, shifting, almost fluid. Everything still only responds to me. She reached the center, where the chair sat simple, curved, clearly engineered for a humanoid frame. It looked ancient, yet uncorroded, untouched by time. When she placed her hand on the armrest, the entire chamber came to life. A beam of light spiraled down from the ceiling, forming an array of floating symbols and diagrams. Then, slowly, it restructured itself into something clearer. A star map. Juno's breath caught. The stars were marked with indicators, arcs, pulses, pathways. She recognized only a few. Most weren't charted in the current Galactic Star Registry. Some were marked with a golden glow. One of them was Earth. Outside, Director Talek watched the data feed with growing concern. Still no entry allowed for other species. Asked Commander Niral of the Arathi. Correct, Talek replied. 3 attempts, all denied. The chamber sealed again immediately after Dr. Rallin entered. The heartbeat scan seems to block any other life form. That's no accident, Niral said grimly. That chamber was designed for humans. Talek nodded slowly. Or for something that became human. The news had already reached the outer communication network. Galactic media outlets were speculating. Some saw opportunity. Others saw danger. The phrase human lock was already trending. Inside the artifact, Juno remained seated as holographic pages turned before her. They weren't written in any known alphabet, but she understood their meaning. Not because of translation tech. Not even intuition. The chamber was teaching her as if some part of it still remembered what it meant to speak to humans. It's a library, she said aloud. Or a beacon. Or both. It stores memories, knowledge, maybe instructions. Her pulse quickened. In response, the lights around her brightened. The more she focused, the more the structure adapted. She saw images of civilizations she couldn't name. Cities floating in deep space. Ships with impossible geometry, and then something stranger. A figure stood at the heart of it all. Tall, humanoid, but not quite human. It had a form like hers. Eyes like hers. Its heartbeat, too, matched hers exactly. Subject 0, she whispered. Or maybe, ancestor. Suddenly, the chamber dimmed. One of the golden star points in the holographic map flickered, then went dark. Juno leaned forward. What does that mean? The pillar emitted a single tone, low and urgent. Then a symbol appeared across the map, blinking red over one of the golden stars. She recognized the pattern. It was the galactic code for distress. Something had gone wrong. Recently, somewhere. Connected to this, structured and possibly to humans, when the artifact door slid open again. Juno stepped out into the cold night with her voice steady. This isn't a ruin, she said. It's a system. A network. Talek met her gaze. And it's still active. She nodded. And it's calling for help. The briefing room aboard the orbiting research vessel Vigilant Dawn was filled with tension. Representatives from 6 different species, including humans, sat around a central holographic table displaying the artifact's star map. At its center, one golden system blinked red, urgent, insistent. It's a distress signal, Juno said, standing beside the projection. And it's tied to whatever that artifact is part of. A network. Possibly a monitoring system. And yet, only you can read it, said Counselor Maftal of the Meroxy Confederation, his tone edged with disbelief. You, and only you. I didn't ask for this, Juno replied calmly. But it responded to me, not because of status or species. Because of biology. She tapped the symbol again. We need to investigate that system. Whoever sent this signal may still be alive, or They may have left something behind we need to understand. Commander Nyrel of the Arathi folded her arms. Or it's a trap. A test. Designed by something old and possibly dangerous. Dr. Talek, still reviewing the pulse records, spoke up. The patterns we've seen in the signal are consistent with ancient encoded safety alerts. This isn't bait. It's a warning. Something is breaking down. A silence followed. The Council had been cautious ever since the incident on X-17, but now the galaxy was watching. The artifact's existence had been confirmed. Its purpose was still unclear. But one thing had changed. Humans were now part of something older and bigger than anyone expected. Back on Earth, reactions were mixed. Some celebrated the idea that humans were connected to an ancient civilization, possibly even descendants of it. Others feared what it might mean if humanity had a purpose that had been forgotten, something they were never meant to rediscover. On news channels, the term the human key circulated constantly. Admiral Elena Park, of the Terran Defense Council, addressed the United Earth's Assembly with poise. We did not choose to be at the center of this, but we are. And we will face it with responsibility, reason, and readiness. Aboard the Vigilant Dawn, preparations were made for a small exploratory mission to the red blinking system designated Lara Prime. It lay in an uncharted sector, near the outer reaches, previously inaccessible due to gravitational anomalies. The ship chosen was the Solace Runner, a diplomatic-class vessel modified for exploration. At its helm would be Captain Arik Den, a calm and focused officer with a reputation for maintaining peace in tense situations. Eliza would accompany the mission not as a soldier, but as a translator of the artifact's responses. She alone could activate the key systems as the ship prepared to depart. She stood in the viewing bay, watching the stars beyond the moon's orbit. We weren't supposed to find this, were we? She asked aloud. Talek stood beside her. Or maybe we were, eventually, but why humans? Talek paused, then spoke with careful thought. There's an old theory in xenoarchaeology that certain ancient species seeded younger ones with traces of themselves, not just DNA, but instincts, patterns, fail-safes. Perhaps humanity wasn't created to rule, but to remember. Eliza turned to face the stars again, her voice steady. Then, let's remember what was lost. Make sure it isn't lost again. The Solace Runner departed. The artifact on Moon X-17 dimmed. Not asleep, not silent, waiting because the human key had been turned. And across the galaxy, other doors were beginning to stir. The journey to Alara Prime took 6 days at maximum slipstream velocity. For most of that time, the Solace Runner passed through quiet, unmarked space, void of traffic lanes, signal buoys, or even basic navigation data. As they neared the system, strange interference began to affect long-range scans. Static hissed through the communications array. Readings warped unpredictably. Even gravity itself seemed to bend at the edges. Juno Rowland sat strapped into the bridge observation chair, her eyes fixed on the swirling energy patterns ahead. It's like the space itself is sick, Captain Arik Den muttered. Frowning at the data, Lieutenant Krex, a Meroxy navigator, turned with concern. If we get any closer, we risk damage to the drive core. Juno stood. No, we have to go through. The artifact on X-17 only blinked red after this system changed. Something inside is drawing attention, something that wants to be found. Crossed the boundary. What they saw on the other side changed everything. Orbiting Alara Prime was a massive, partially shattered ring, structure miles wide, cracked in 3 places, bleeding particles into the planet's thin atmosphere below. Around it floated debris, fragments of ships and drones, all ancient beyond dating. It's a gateway, Juno whispered. Or it was. The ship systems went wild with new data. beneath the planet's surface, signs of dormant technology began pulsing in slow, rhythmic beats mimicking the same human heartbeat pattern detected on Moon X-17. And then came the signal. Not just a distress call but a voice. Guardian key recognized. Alara core compromised. Cycle incomplete. Awaiting directive. The voice was emotionless, ancient, but somehow familiar. It echoed directly through the artifact receiver Juno had brought from X-17. She placed her hand on the interface console. "This is Juno Rallin of Earth. I received your signal. I'm here to respond." There was a pause, then the planet itself pulsed in return, sending a clear energy burst through the ring. Suddenly, one of the fragmented gateway shards lit up aboard. The ship, chaos stirred, power levels fluctuated. Artificial gravity briefly failed. In the medbay, crew members reported strange dreams and memories they had never lived. Visions of cities in the stars. Battles in darkness. Voices calling out names in languages no longer spoken. And at the center of it all was a single constant. The image of a human standing at a console of light. Just like Juno. Captain Den called an emergency meeting in the strategy chamber. "This isn't just a response," he said. "It's reawakening something, and it's connected to her." Juno looked over the star maps, now glowing on the table. "There are more like this," she said. "Other systems marked like Alara. We were wrong to think X-17 was an isolated site. It was just the beginning." Hours later, the away team descended to Alara Prime's surface. The land was desolate but stable. They followed the artifact's signal to a canyon carved into crystalline rock. At the bottom, another door stood sealed, smaller than the one on X-17, but clearly linked in design. When Juno approached, the door responded not just to her heartbeat, but to her thoughts. Cycle restored. Human presence confirmed. Alara Gate reactivated. The ground trembled slightly, and beneath her feet, something vast began to stir. Underground Machine City, coming slowly back to life. Above, in orbit, the Solace Runner received a final translation from the Alara beacon. The keys have returned. The cycle can resume. But the enemy watches still. Captain Den looked out the viewing window into space. "What enemy?" he asked softly. Behind the stars, something shifted. Beneath the surface of Alara Prime, the buried city pulsed with new energy. Juno. Rylan stood in a wide, domed chamber, where glowing walls projected images in mid-air memory fragments from a civilization long gone. She turned slowly, watching. The patterns form tall spires orbiting stars. Sleek vessels stretching between galaxies. A peace forged by knowledge, not war. Then the images changed. Sudden darkness. Worlds consumed. Great machines turning against their makers. And always, one symbol remained, a ring of 6 lights, one of which dimmed to black. "The cycle was broken," Juno whispered. The artifact responded. "The others came without warning. They were once like us. But they chose dominion. Their hunger erased what we built." Juno pressed her hand to the nearest panel. "And you left. These beacons, to warn us, to guide you. If humans still lived, the network would wake. You are the failsafe." The weight of the words settled deep in her mind. They were not only archaeological relics, they were defensive systems, waiting for humanity's return. She wasn't a random key. Humanity had been meant to remember, to return, to continue something much older. In orbit, aboard the Solace Runner, the rest of the crew monitored the planetary energy spikes. Lieutenant Krex frowned at her display. "I'm detecting a signal. Not from Alara. It's coming from just beyond the system's edge." "Another artifact?" asked Captain Den. "No," she said slowly. "Something else. A vessel. Large. No transponder. No known origin." The bridge fell silent. A moment later, the ship appeared on their screens, sleek, black, and silent. It didn't match any species currently known in the Galactic Council. No weapons were charged, but no communication came either. "They're just watching us," Den muttered for a single moment. The mystery ship's hull flickered and one of its markings became visible. A twisted version of the ring, with 5 lights dimmed and one glowing a harsh red dot. Den stood quickly. "That's no ally." Back below, Juno felt a sharp pressure behind her eyes. The artifact lit up urgent, fast. "They've returned. One fragment watches. They will not act yet. But they remember us." Juno turned to the others. "In the chamber, we're being watched. One of them is here." An alert echoed from the ship above. The unknown vessel had begun to reposition itself, not toward the Solace runner, but toward the surface. "They know I'm down here," Juno said. "They're not after the artifact, or after the one who can open it." Back on board, Captain Den made the call. "Prepare immediate retrieval. We're not losing her." But Juno stayed focused. She stood before the final console of the Alara installation and placed her hand on its core. Lights gathered in a ring above her head. The symbol of 6 lights appeared once more, this time 4 lit to still dim. Defense protocols activated. Guardian code confirmed. This site is now sealed. With a low rising hum, a force field encased the central chamber. At the same moment, a blast of electromagnetic energy surged from the planet's core, striking the unknown ship above. The mystery vessel retreated fast, but not damaged. It had tested, observed, and now it knew that the human key had been used. Juno returned to the surface as the Solace runner touched down. Captain Den met her at the ramp. "What did you find?" "Not a warning," she said. "A promise. They left these for us to finish what they couldn't. And now that I've activated Alara," she turned to the sky, "others will wake." The message went out in every known diplomatic channel. El Ra Prime Site activated. Human-linked artifact network confirmed. Unknown vessel encountered. Possible hostile intent by the time the Solace runner reached safe jump range. The galaxy was already reacting. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council convened. Intelligence networks across multiple sectors began compiling all previously unexplained ruins, pulse signals, and anomalies. Once thought to be inert, everywhere, the same pattern was emerging. More artifacts were waking up and they responded only to humans. Back on Earth, humanity faced a turning point. No longer background players in galactic politics, humans were now considered vital and vulnerable. Earth's skies filled with ships from allied species offering support. Research bases across Terran colonies were placed under high protection. And the Quinn Treaty, which once limited human access to interstellar relics, was quietly suspended. But even more concerning were the whispers in the shadows of Senate halls and diplomatic enclaves. A question repeated itself. If humans were built to restore the cycle, could they also be used to control it? On board the orbital research station Unity Reach, Juno Rollin stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. 5 more artifact sites now blinked softly in amber-ready, waiting. Only she and those with matching human signatures could unlock them. But one more site had activated on its own without a human. This one blinked red. "It's not ours," she said, pointing to it. This was awakened by them. Captain Arik Den leaned closer. "You think it's another stronghold?" "No, I think it's their next move." The site was located on a dead world named Gera's Rift, a planet once lush, now scorched and cracked. Scans from a nearby patrol ship revealed twisted structures, partially sunken into molten terrain, metal towers blackened by ancient fire. A reconnaissance drone Sent into the area recorded images of strange glyphs, eerily similar to those from the human-linked artifacts, but inverted, corrupted. One of the walls bore a crude carving, the same 6-light ring. Every light extinguished, and then a message was found. Etched not in code, but in words that shook every translator who saw them. The fire returns. They wake one. We will wake all. Juno and her team knew time was running out. Whatever happened before, she told the council during a live address, is beginning again. The others aren't just watching, they're building. Her voice was calm but firm. We must reach the other sites first, not to weaponize them, to remember what they once did to restore. Some counselors pushed back, others offered fleets, personnel, or caution. But the momentum had shifted. More than politics or fear, it was something deeper driving the galaxy. Now hope that maybe this time the cycle would finish. Juno led the next expedition herself. Aboard the Solace Runner, now upgraded with artifact-derived systems, they charted a course to Site 3DIP in the Kalari Void, a place no ship had entered in over 1,000 years. As they approached, something new happened. The artifact on board activated preemptively. Its projection changed. 6 lights again, now 3 of them, glowing steadily. Guardian pathways aligned. Conflict approaching. Heartbound interface required. She didn't know what heartbound meant, but she knew it was referring to more than biology. Perhaps trust, connection. Perhaps unity, as the ship descended into the storm-choked skies of Site 3's world. A familiar feeling returned. A pulse, a signal, and deep beneath the surface. Another voice, waiting. The storms over Site 3 didn't relent. They raged in rhythmic bursts, like a warning system left on repeat. Lightning laced the sky in unnatural patterns, occasionally flashing in perfect hexagonal formations. Below, the Solace Runner hovered. Low, its landing struts touching down on fractured obsidian ground. Juno Rowland stepped onto the surface, the artifact tablet pulsing steadily in her pack. The pulse wasn't just reacting to her presence, it was syncing, matching her heartbeat exactly. Ahead, nestled between jagged ridges, stood a towering archway of silver stone. It had no visible controls, no language etched into its surface. And yet, when she stepped forward, it shimmered and opened like mist parting. Beyond it, tunnel spiraled downward, illuminated by dim violet light. "Are you sure about this?" Captain Den's voice came through her earpiece. "No," Juno replied softly, smiling faintly. "But it feels like it's waiting for me." She continued inward. As she descended, the walls began projecting memories again. Not in words or images, but feelings, echoes of decisions, trust, betrayal, unity. She sensed ancient disagreements among beings who had once stood here, guardians of something powerful, divided over whether to share or shield what they'd built. And then, the tunnel ended. The chamber beyond was spherical and vast. In its center floated a single object like a heart made of light and crystal. 6 pathways led toward it, only 3 currently lit. One pulsed with Juno's own heartbeat, heartbound. "Interface available," the chamber's voice echoed. "Connection requires intention. Directive requires choice." Juno stepped forward. What choice? A projection unfolded, a star map of the galaxy. Then a possible future. On one side, planets burning, silenced by unseen machines. On the other, united fleets, species working side by side, using artifact nodes as relays of peace, of coordination, of protection. Then, the voice spoke again. "You carry the memory code. You are not chosen by destiny, but by design. Shall we begin restoration or prepare for resistance?" Juno's breath caught. "I have to choose between rebuilding the system or turning it into a weapon. You must choose which path humanity activates. Others will follow." Back on the Solace Runner, Den and the crew watched helplessly as the chamber sealed itself. The sensors showed no danger, but the energy inside was rising. Power levels across the system began to shift, flowing outward from Site 3 to nearby. Relay nodes. We're seeing new signals, Krex reported. Other sites lighting up across different sectors. Because she made contact, Den said, or. Because she was about to make a decision that would echo across the stars. Inside the chamber, Juno stared at the glowing heart. Her hand hovered above the activation node. Both paths shimmered before her. Restore or resist. Restoration would reawaken. The ancient network as a guida system of peacekeeping relics. Harmonized through human empathy and reason. Resistance would empower the sites to become defenses shields, weapons, automated responses to threat. Strong, immediate, but risky? She didn't hesitate. I choose restoration, she said. The others want silence and fear. We respond with unity. The heart flared with golden light. Choice confirmed. Heartbound protocol complete. The cycle begins anew. Across the galaxy, the change was immediate. Artifact sites flickered to life. Symbols changed. The 6 light rings stabilized with 4 now lit, and on dozens of worlds. Ancient doors opened not with fear, but welcome. The others would notice. But this time, the galaxy would be ready because humanity hadn't chosen conquest. They had chosen hope. The galaxy stirred. From forgotten ruins on desert moons to silent vaults deep beneath gas giant clouds, the artifact network came alive. Each site pulsed in sequence for golden lights shining across the stars, and the others saw it happen. In the dark between systems, their ships moved silent, cold, with no need for words. Their technology was not built to share. It consumed. And now the key they had long feared, the one they failed to erase, had returned. The human key. On Earth. The United Council met in a chamber far larger than its founders had ever imagined. Representatives from 12 major species were present, some in person, others via projection. Holographic maps showed artifact signals, energy surges, and unknown vessel movements. We are no longer guessing, said Admiral Park. The others are real, and they are approaching the galactic core. Fast. But we are not alone anymore, added Counselor Rishala of the Kalari. Thanks to Dr. Rollin's choice, we have a network capable of response not in weapons alone, but in coordination, protection, and shared knowledge. Across the chamber, Juno Rallin sat quietly, listening. She hadn't returned to Earth, to command. Her work was still in the field, still with the artifacts, but her choice had changed everything. Aboard the Solace Runner, now operating as a mobile command vessel, Captain Den watched as Site 5 sent out its signal. Another light. Joined the ring. 5 of 6 now lit. The 6th still dark lay beyond the known edges of space. Its signal was faint, but Juno had seen it before in her dreams. Reflected through the artifact interfaces, it was the core, the origin of it all. And the others were heading there. If we lose that final site, Juno said, we may lose the entire network. The heart of the system is more than a node. It's the source. It's where the first guardians fell. Den nodded. Then we go. The journey to the final site, deep in uncharted space, was unlike any before. The region known. As the shrouded veil had long been a mystery and navigable storms, sensor loss, missing expeditions. But with the artifact interface guiding them, the path unfolded safely. It was as if the system remembered them. Lighting the way at the center was a massive station. Not buried like the others, but floating still, silent, and whole. It was shaped like a star itself, with 6 radiating arms. Only one still gleamed. The rest lay dormant. They approached in silence. Then the 6th light flickered, and another signal emerged not from the station, but from beyond. The others had arrived. They did not fire. Not yet. They hovered like shadows beyond a border not meant to be crossed. Juno and her team descended to the station's core. There, they found a room unlike any other round, open to the stars above, with a central interface made of woven light. She stepped forward. The interface pulsed. Final confirmation required. Network unification or total defense. This decision will echo. The others sent their own signal cold, mechanical. An offer: deactivate the system and be spared. Surrender the human key, and the galaxy would remain as it was. Juno placed her hand on the core. No, she didn't yell. She didn't plead. She simply chose. The sixth light flared to gold across the galaxy. The network pulsed once in perfect harmony. The other ships reeled, their systems disrupted, not destroyed, disarmed. The cycle had completed, not with war, but with awakening. The artifact network was whole again, and the galaxy had chosen its guardians. In the days that followed, the others vanished into deep space, silent once more. The Council declared a new age, the Harmony Accord. Guardians were trained from every species, but always with a human at each node. Not because they ruled, but because their presence ensured balance. The lock had opened to a heartbeat, and, in doing so, it reminded the stars that sometimes the smallest rhythm can awaken the oldest light.